There are a lot of building materials and building methods that people think, oh, if I just use this, my house won't grow mold. And these methods are almost always in the opposite direction. They make mold worse. Let's get into those. The first one on that list is basements, all right? I read an entire Healthy Homes book. I won't name it because I don't want to roast the people publicly, but their entire thing was never have a basement, okay? So what do we got here on our new house? We got a slab. On our old house, we got a basement. And they are onto something, all right? The moisture wants to come in from the ground. Now, if you're in a really dry climate, there's not going to be a whole lot of moisture in the ground most of the year. But in most areas, we've got some moisture in the ground. It wants to come in. I have given that a much larger surface area for both walls and the floor in my old house with the basement. In the new house, I've just given it one surface area to come up. Now, on its face, this seems really smart, right? But I'm going to tell you why it's not actually. What's the thing we aren't talking about? Finishes. This is concrete. It brings moisture in. And maybe it condensates, maybe it drips down occasionally. Usually it's just going to be kind of a damp surface. If I have this just as concrete, it can breathe. And all I have to do to really control this in most basements is I'm just going to pop my little dehumidifier in. I think going to drain direct into the sump pit. This is exactly what I do in my house. And what do you know? I have a nice dry basement year round now. Does jack up my electric bill a little bit, but this thing is not finished. And that is the key. In the new house, unless I'm going to have polished concrete floors, these are going to be finished. They're going to have LVP over them. They're going to have hardwood. They're going to have something. And if that moisture gets through and it gets up underneath whatever floor you've got there, you're going to have mold underneath it. It's going to rot. It's going to have absolutely no place to dry out. And that unfinished part is the key. I don't believe in finishing basements. Do you want to live in a cave? I don't want to live in a cave. But you know what I do want to do? I want to have access to all of my pipes down here, all of my HVAC. I want to be able to get down there and work on that so that this house can last for hundreds of years. Those systems don't last forever. They need to be worked on. I need places to put my stuff. If a tornado comes, I'm in the Midwest, I need to put my family down here and we need to be able to hide from that and be safe. A basement is something that ensures longevity and usefulness of a house. If I'm building a new house, I can do a lot of different methods on the outside and on the inside to keep that moisture from coming in. But even if it's an old house like mine, that dehumidifier pretty much solves all the problems, guys. Listen, if you want to have the same floors as Walmart, you want polished concrete in your house, be my guest, all right? That's a pretty good system. You just got concrete. If it comes up through, it comes up through, and it can dry off. Not a big deal. But if you want to finish these floors with anything, you are asking for mold problems underneath. I come from a hardwood flooring background. That's how I got my start in construction. And guess where we never ever put hardwood? We never put it in the basement because we know there's moisture down here. Well, we know there's moisture here too. It's a slab, slabs wick water, and it's only a matter of time before you're gonna have some type of moisture problem, which is gonna be some type of mold problem. If conditions permit it, guys, I'm always going to have a basement. If not, I'm going to have a crawl space that's finished like a basement. So instead of having, 8 feet of ceiling down there, 7 feet of ceiling, I'm going to build it exactly the same way, except my crawl space is just going to be, right here. It's still going to have all of the vapor barrier products. It's still going to have a sump pit. It's still going to have a concrete floor. And I'm going to be able to control the moisture down there very nicely. I'm never going to have an open earth crawl space. And heaven forbid, I'm never going to have a slab in my house either. The next method I see getting brought up way too often is ICF, insulated concrete forms. Here we've got our insulated concrete form, guys. It is a big styrofoam Lego, essentially, that's hollow, and you fill it with concrete. On the edges, you've got this locking system that goes top to bottom. They click down in. And then we've got our plastic straps hidden inside the styrofoam every 16 inches, and we screw our drywall to that. Also down in these webs is a rebar. You just drop them down in these slots, and they hold in place there. It's really fun to build with. I've done it on several occasions, but this building method has some major problems for mold and humidity. My old boss built himself a mansion out of this stuff. It was an amazing house, and during the summer, he had horrible humidity problems. ICF is incredibly tight, all right? You've got a concrete wall inside of these big styrofoam forms, so what you end up getting is an incredibly weatherproof, tough house that insulates incredibly well. But the moisture has absolutely nowhere to dry if it makes it inside your interior wall cavity. So if I come in, I put that sheet of drywall right up against this foam, and then I'm gonna cover it with my latex-based paint usually, and I've made a system now to where anything that gets behind that drywall has to dry back out through the drywall, or it's not going to dry at all. Meaning you're going to get mold problems behind that drywall if you do not have your interior humidity dialed in incredibly well. And most houses simply just don't have that. If I was going to build with ICF, which I could see the draw, especially in a place like Florida where you get hurricanes, it's very sturdy, very secure place for storms, I would not use drywall with a latex-based paint. I'm going to use something that's very vapor open. On my walls here, I've got some plank. Now it is painted with latex-based paint. That's going to close up a lot of the wood's ability to transfer moisture through. I would use wood plank, or I would use like a lime plaster. And then when moisture does get in behind this wall, it has the ability to dry out. Now that's going to solve a lot of your problems. But with the ICF system, I think you always will be fighting indoor humidity problems, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money on dehumidification to keep this system safe and keep it from growing mold behind the walls. The other thing you do need to consider, and this is going to be a little wacky for some of you guys who don't believe in EMFs, but research has shown that people who have mold sickness, who are trying to recover from it, become very sensitive to EMFs, electromagnetic fields. And houses like this can really increase the level of EMF fields inside of the house because of all the rebar in the walls. When the waves from these fields hit all of the rebar going both vertically and horizontally in these walls, they can start to bounce off, increasing the level of EMFs inside the house. So whether you believe in EMFs or not, if you do have mold sensitivity, you're trying to recover from mold, I would not encourage you to live in this type of house. Just build with concrete is something that I see popping up all the time as well. And this is such a bad idea inside of North America, and I'm going to tell you why. In other countries, they do just build with concrete, where it's really warm and humid all of the time. But the big difference between how they build and how we build is that they don't insulate anything. The windows oftentimes don't even have glass in them. The wind just blows through the house, all right? So if you're actually just going to build with concrete and let the outside elements just blow through your house, not in the rain, but the wind year round, okay, fine. But the code is not going to let you do that here in the US. And what we're going to have to add is we're going to need insulation. We're going to need multiple layers on this concrete construction, and you're going to see all of a sudden that this causes a huge problem. What did we learn about concrete already? It wicks moisture. So if I have driving rain coming in here, it's going to wick inside. The sun comes out afterwards, starts heating it up. It's going to push that moisture in further. As that moisture comes in, it's going to hit the backside of this. And what do I usually have here? I'm probably going to have what? I'm going to have like either furring strips or a stud wall with insulation in it. And I'm going to have my drywall, my latex-based paint. Guess what's going to start happening here? This is going to get wet inside of here. And concrete does not dry out this other way easily at all. It needs to dry to the inside of the house. But we rarely build in a way in which it is actually vapor open enough to dry to the inside. So if I've got my drywall here with my latex-based paint, I've got some insulation in there, all of that moisture when it comes in, it's not going to be able to get out nearly fast enough, and I'm going to start molding in that cavity. So I have the exact same problem I did with the ICF. So I can fix this problem by doing a couple of things. One, I could use very vapor open finishes. We could go back to our lime plaster here, or we could use our wood planks without a latex-based paint to close off the little pores in them to let the water through. But there's another layer to this, all right? And sure, concrete on its own, it does not mold, but the little dust that's in your air all the time that you can see when the sunlight hits it just right, that stuff does mold. So concrete can very easily grow mold because of the stuff that lands on it, guys. So not only is it the materials that we stack up against it, it's the stuff that lands on it. And since it's always wanting to bring moisture from wherever it's higher to wherever it's lower, which is oftentimes inside your house, you're very likely going to have moisture problems inside your walls. But the problem gets even worse if you go up to a climate that, like Michigan, where I live, is very hot in the summer. It's almost like a Florida summer, right? It's super humid, not quite as hot. And in the winter, it's absolutely freezing cold outside and tons of snow, all right? We have an opposite problem here now. When I was a kid, our house would be so dry that the back of my hands would crack and bleed if I didn't lotion them. I hate lotion, so that would happen every winter because we have super low humidity. But if you want to make your house more comfortable to where that sort of stuff is not happening to you or your children, no offense, Mom and Dad, you're going to have to put moisture off into the house. You're going to have to humidify the house, all right? But what happens when it's really cold outside, if I don't have this system dialed in just perfectly, is that the back of this concrete wall, It gets very cold, all right? And I've got my wall here that actually holds my insulation. It's got my drywall and everything. Here's my insulation. What happens is that this moist air comes up and it's looking for a place to go, all right? And what happens is, okay, let's say we got our electric box here. It comes up through there, it's getting in there. In a number of other places, it finds its way inside of this wall here. And then what do we know about moist air when it hits a really cold surface? It condensates, guys. And so as this air finds its way into the wall, onto the cold backside of this concrete, it condensates. And then I start to get a mold problem going inside of this wall yet again. We can help this problem out a lot with a lot of the same methods we've talked about before, you know, doing our lime plaster here or our wood plank. But we can also put a smart vapor barrier inside of that wall. We'll put that right here, okay? And then we'll detail that really well with tape and making sure that no air can get in there. But when air does get in there and it starts to get moist in there, the pores on that paper, this is the best way I know how to describe it, the pores on that paper will actually start to open like wood would do, and they'll actually let some of that vapor back out of the wall. So just like the other systems we talked about, it can be done, but it's actually even more difficult to keep mold out of a structure that's made solely of concrete rather than more of a traditionally built one. The next building method that gets people into trouble is spray foam. Let's talk first about adding it to an old house. There's a bunch of these companies out there that if you get on Google and you just look for them, all they do is spray foam. And the problem with this is that these guys are not builders. And so if you ask them to spray foam whatever, your attic, they're probably gonna come in and they're just gonna start blasting, all right? They'll blast your whole house full of spray foam. You've got multiple problems if you do this, all right? Number one, you might have little leaks in an old house. You get up in your attic and you look real carefully, there's oftentimes going to be some little leaks that maybe you don't know about because your house dries well, all right? Let's say it just leaks a little bit around this vent pipe, all right? Well, that's okay. It just drops in, that air blows through your gable vent, and it just dries it out. It's really not that big of a deal because of how your house is built. But now you close this up, what can it do? It can't do anything. It's just going to stay there. It's going to start rotting in here. It's going to rot. It's going to mold. And one of the scariest parts about it is that the spray foam is hiding this from you. And so you don't know until it gets really, really bad. Another big problem with spray foam on an old house like this is that air is used to flowing in your old house. This is how this house is lived. It may not even have insulation. Like my old house, it didn't even have any insulation. All that air that had all of these points of leaking in now is still leaking in through a lot of them. It's just not being able to come in and dry inside your house now. So you're gonna have high moisture environments that are just out of sight. And you're not gonna know if there's mold in there or not until it's probably a really bad problem. But let's take a look at the new home. Spray foam can work as both an air barrier and a vapor barrier, but the problem with it is that it can off-gas, which is not related to mold. It can off-gas chemicals into your home, but it can also crack. So you've got your spray foam all through here. Well, if you have an improper installation or just the house shifts, you could get a big crack in that insulation along one of your studs. And now all of a sudden, tons and tons of air can make its way inside of your wall. And when it makes it inside of your wall, it's got nowhere to dry to, all right? So what are you gonna start getting in here? You're gonna start getting mold inside that wall, behind the drywall where you can't see it, and it can become a really big mold problem. The next big problem with spray foam is that builders will upsell it to their customers to save on energy, but the builders don't know or don't care about the other effects that it can have. So if you blast this house full of spray foam, you blast it everywhere, it's gonna make this house very tight, but this may be a very low-tech, poorly built house where that moisture is coming in different places through rain around windows. Or it may be that they did a pretty good job on the outside, but they've just now made a super tight house with no ventilation system, no extra mechanical ventilation to bring fresh air inside of the house. So they've made this thing really stale and really toxic. I made an entire video roasting green building for reasons just like this. The alternative that I'm going to on my projects is going to be exterior insulation to solve most of my problems. I think that this is the way of the future. The code is even starting to require it in some places. The last building practice that causes mold, guys, that people just don't realize is big AC units. When I say that, I mean AC units that are too big for the house. And this concept took me a really long time to understand, but I'm going to break it down so simple for you. Here's my little house and my big AC unit. Here's my little house and my little AC unit that's sized appropriately for it. This big AC unit doesn't need to kick on that often to cool this little house down, all right? What happens is this big AC unit puts out a mega blast, all right? It can make so much cold air. It just mega blasts this house. Let's say it does it, once every 30 minutes, okay? I'm just throwing out numbers. I'm not an AC technician, all right? Whereas this properly sized one, it kicks on once every 5 minutes, all right? And it just puts out a regular sized blast of cold air into the house. Well, your air conditioning unit also works as a dehumidifying unit. Most places inside the United States also need dehumidification because it's moist outside. If you're in the Southwest, this might be an exception for you. And so since this AC unit barely runs, it keeps the house nice and cool. But what it does not do is it does not properly dehumidify the house as it air conditions it. Whereas this one that runs quite frequently does a good job of pulling the moisture out of the air. So inside of this house with the big AC unit, you've got lots of cool air, a nice cool temperature, but high humidity, the perfect condition for mold growth. Whereas this unit is bringing the moisture content down with the cold air it puts in. If we needed to fix this problem, we could downsize, or we might be able to add a dehumidifier system to help with that. Hopefully you're not in this situation. I really appreciate the support and everybody who's watching my channel and commenting. I've got so many comments that I can't quite keep up with all of them, but please let me know what you're thinking, and I do scan them, and I try to address the common things that people ask about in the next videos that I make. If you like this video on preventing mold, I've got another video I'm gonna pop on the screen right now for you to watch also on building to prevent mold. Thanks so much for your support.